Lapit sa iyo na may pagpapatirapang puso at kaluluwa. Nagmamakaawa na patawarin niyo po kami sa aming mga pagkakasala at pagkukulang sa inyo, sa bayan, sa kapwa-tao, kalikasan, at sa lahat ng nilalang. O aming Panginoon, ang mundo po ngayon ay sadlak na sa pagkagahaman, sa kapangyarihan at kayamanan. Digmaan doon, digmaan dito, katwiran doon, katwiran dito. Habang ang mga inosente, bata, matanda, may kapansanang mga pasyente ay unang nagiging biktima ng mga bomba, kanyon, bala, mga kahindik-hindik na krimen na yumurak at lumabag sa lahat ng usapin ng karapatang pangtao. O aming Panginoong maawain, hinihingi po namin, naglulumuhod na iligtas niyo po ang aming bayan sa mga kaguluhan na maaaring magdulot ng kapahamakan ng buong taong bayan. Bigyan niyo kami ng talino at galing upang manaig ay ang pusong makadiyos, makabayan, makakalikasan at makatao. Ang mga katangiang ito ay iyong pagyamanin sa aming kaluluwa upang ang pagkakaisa ay yakapin, magkapatawaran, at magsimulang magsama-sama tungo sa tunay na kapayapaan at pag-unlad. Rabi'a inni wala tu'in alay. Panginoon ko, tulungan niyo po kami at huwag niyo kaming hayaang madaig. Allahumma inna naj'aluka fi nuhurihim wa na'uthu bika min syururihim. O Allah, kayo po ang ginagawa naming panangga laban sa kanila. At sa inyo kami nagpapatulong, nagpapakupkup mula sa kanilang mga kasamaan. Amen.
Thank you, Senator Padilla. And I think it's appropriate to greet each other, Assalamualaikum, especially with the recent events. The Secretary, please call the roll.
Roll call of members. Honorable Senator Aquino, Senator Cayetano Pia, Senator De La Rosa, Senator Ejercito, Senator Escudero, Senator Estrada, Senator Gatchalian, Senator Go, Senator Hontiveros, Senator Lacson, Senator Lapid, Senator Legarda, Senator Marcoleta, Senator Marcos, Senator Padilla, Senator Pangilinan, Senator Soto, Senator Tulfo Erwin, Senator Tulfo Rafi, Senator Villanueva, Senator Villar Camille, Senator Villar Mark, Senator Subiri. The Senate President is present.
With 24 senators, or every single senator present, I hope this continues. The chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Leader.
Yes, Mr. President.
For that, Majority Leader.
Before we recognize the distinguished lady from Taguig and Pateras, may I just be allowed, Mr. President, to greet some guests from the gallery, guests of Senator Pangilinan, Governor Ann Hofer of Zamboanga, Sibugay, Greens for Good and Farm Forward Initiatives, farmers from Benguet, guests of Senator Ejercito, Motorcycle Taxi Community, led by its chairperson, Romeo Maglunsod, and guests of our dear Senate President Alan Cayetano, Mr. Elijah Easy Johnson, Manila Champion, Red Bull Dance Your Style, representative from Taguig. We welcome them to this August Chamber, Mr. President.
We recognize your presence and welcome you to the Philippine Senate.
Thank you. Mr. President, Senator Pia Cayetano is seeking the floor. May I move that she be
What is
recognized, Mr. President?
the pleasure of the lady from Taguig and Pateros?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, very briefly, I rise for a short manifestation, which is very personal to me. Our rules are very clear, and every member of this chamber is expected to observe decorum, respect, and fairness towards one another. This is the foundation of parliamentary democracy and collegiality in this institution. And this is what the public deserves, for us to act with respect towards one another. As public officials, we are also bound by the Code of Conduct for Public Officials. And our civil code also requires that everyone acts with justice, gives everyone his due, and observe honesty and good faith. I would like to believe that in my 20 years, almost 20 years in the Senate, I have conducted myself with respect towards my colleagues regardless of political differences. Mr. President, today, a public statement was made by our colleague, Senator Ping Lacson, which was also posted in his YouTube page, suggesting that my vehicle was used to assist Senator De La Rosa in entering the Senate premises, which I quote, "Ang pagkakaalam ko, at least silang dalawa lang mag-ate, Cayetanos, ang nakakaalam tungkol kay Bato na darating. Dahil ang pagkakaalam ko, nakasakay si Bato sa kotse ni Senator Pia." Before I proceed, welcome, Senator Bato. I am happy na nakapasok ka. Wala akong problema na nakarating ka. But Mr. President, I go back. Sinabi man niya na sa pagkakaalam niya, ang katanungan ko po, Mr. President, nag-abala ba kayo mag-double check? Bago niyo yan sinabi sa public. Because despite that qualification, the statement was publicly conveyed in a manner that created the impression that I was directly involved in facilitating Senator De La Rosa's entry into the Senate premises. Again, okay lang po sa akin na nakarating siya dito. Wala ho akong problema doon. Let me state this clearly and unequivocally. That statement is false. Senator De La Rosa did not ride in my vehicle, nor did I have anything to do with facilitating his presence in the Senate last Monday. Ni hindi ko nga alam na darating siya. Nalaman ko lang na darating siya dahil ang minority floor leader na kapatid ko tumayo dyan, and he addressed the Senate President and nagpasalamat siya sa public service ng Senate President, Senator Tito Soto, which I also believe is well-deserved. Sinabi niya na maganda ang pakitungaan sa kanya ni Senate President Tito Soto. And then sinabi niya na we have the numbers and Senator Bato is present. Nagulat din ako. Katabi ko si Lawrence, ako, nagulat ako, wala akong idea. Ni hindi ko alam kung nasan siya, ni hindi ko alam na malapit na siya. I have no idea kung nasan siya. So kung paano nadamay ang kotse ko is a mystery to me, dear colleagues, and the public. In fact, Senator Kiko can attest, you saw me downstairs sa basement dahil pareho kami dyan madalas dumaan at sabi niya pa sa akin, oh, dito kayo nagdidiskusyon ng staff mo, hindi na dun sa hagdanan dahil ilang beses ko na siya naharangan sa hagdanan, sa hallway na napakakitid, na nagdidiskusyon with my staff. Sabi ko, oo nga, haba ng mga diskusyon namin. Siguro naman kung dala ko si Senator Bato, medyo kinakabakabahan ako na makita ako dun ni Senator Kiko, di ba? So, it is a mystery to me. Paano ako nadamay at yung sasakyan ko? If the gentleman wanted to know paano nakarating si Senator Kiko, then why not ask him? Sorry, Senator Bato, kung paano nakarating si Senator Bato, then ask him. Or ask the now Senate President, who was the one who said that nandyan na siya. Wala ko talaga akong alam. So, Mr. President, a false public imputation, whenever made, is exactly what the above-mentioned rules were designated to prevent. Unverified allegations about a colleague falls below the standard of professionalism that is demanded of public officials. Magulo na nga ang mundo, magulo na ang Pilipinas, wag na nating dagdagan. Don't say things about your colleagues that are not true. I trust that under the leadership of my brother, Alan Peter Cayetano, whom I know, not just as a public servant, but as my younger brother, this chamber will conduct itself with sobriety, fairness, and respect for the truth and respect for one another. Mr. Senate President, I will keep this manifestation short. Napakarami pa hong trabaho. Mag-aaral pa ako para sa hearing ko on the rising prices of electricity. Mag-aaral pa ako to support our colleagues who will be the next chairperson of the Committee on Health, the Committee on Energy, at napakarami pa ho nating trabaho kailangan gawin. So I leave that as it is, and I hope that this will not be repeated again. Thank you.
Senator Marcoleta, can we give way to Senator Lacson since
Thank you, Mr. President.
Go ahead, Senator Marcoleta.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Can we give
Magtatanong lang sana ako, Mr. President, kay Senator Pia. Mga ilang tanong.
Will Senator Lacson also interpolate
This is very short.
a manifestation?
Pero
Senator
Mr. President,
Marcoleta,
ako po nakatayo na rito bago pa siya tumayo. Siguro po, kung
Would you
sino
allow
yung unang
me,
tumayo.
Senator Lacson, just because he was first, but he was mentioned, so I am in the quandary of who of the two gentlemen will give way.
May I, Mr. President?
Yeah. Senator Marcoleta, may I ask you this personal favor since the gentleman was mentioned?
Sige po, mas matanda naman siya sa akin eh.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
President.
Senator Lacson is recognized.
I want to put it on record that I sincerely apologize to our distinguished colleague, Senator Pia Cayetano. That information was relayed to me by a fairly reliable source, no? And if that was a mistake, then I sincerely apologize. I thought I made a public statement because I thought it was just a very not really a serious matter, but because maski saan sumakay si Senator Bato, as everybody would agree, it is of no moment. Sa amin siguro, kung malaman namin kay Senator Ligardo pa nakasakay, baka doon pa kami magkaroon ng issue. Pero maski kanino pa siyang nakasakay na sasakyan, lalo na from the majority, sa tingin ko wala naman pong problema, walang issue. Kaya parang isip ko, okay lang yung i-share ko yung information that I received from, ang sabi ko, from a fairly reliable source. Now, if it is false, then, or even if it is not false, then I sincerely apologize, Mr. President.
Well, Senator Pia said that she will leave it at that, so I will not refer it to any committee. Senator Lacson apologized, you accepted. If I may just interject that it might seem innocent, Senator Lacson, but to those who are commenting, they think it's a crime, even because people got confused with the timeline, that when he got here, we didn't know there was an ICC warrant and everything. I told the media after my sister speaks, sa akin siya nakasakay, and I did not tell my sister, and I did not tell many of the members in the majority that he will attend. Ang sabi ko lang, please be there. Senator Marcoleta.
Mr. President, tatanong ko lang po sana kay Sen Pia, kung halimbawa po ako'y nakisakay sa kanyang sasakyan, siya po ba o ako'y nakagawa ng isang krimen dito sa ating bansa?
Sa akin lang po, kung kahit sino sa mga kasamahan natin dito na they need a ride, na nangyari na yon. Minsan may event tayo, sumasakay ako sa kotse ni Senator Mig Subiri, nakasakay na rin ako sa kotse ni Senator Loren, nakasakay na rin ako sa kotse ni Senator Angara. Sino pa sa inyo hindi nagbibigay sa akin ng ride? I would be happy to give a colleague a ride. But I'm just saying, that's why I had to repeat na I don't have an issue with Senator Bato arriving in the Senate. I have an issue with the aspersion of malice na parang patago kong pinarating dito na gamit ang kotse ko na walang katotohanan. Kaya to answer your question, wala naman hong masama doon.
Yun nga po eh. Siya na rin po ang umamin na wala naman pong masama, ay ba't kinakailangan pong gawan pa po ng post yun? Pangalawa pong tanong, Mr. President, Senator Pia, kung halimbawa po ginawa ko yun, nakisakay ako sa inyo, dahil meron lang akong gustong pagtaguan, hindi po ba napagtitibay natin, nakasabihan nating mga Pilipino, at nakuha ko naman talagang magtago dahil nakisakay nga ako sa inyo. Hindi ba napatunayan natin ang isang kasabihan, Mr. President, Senator Pia, na nagtatali-talinuhan ng matsing, nauutakan pa rin. Salamat po, Mr. President.
Mr. President, this is not a response to Senator Marcoleta some questions or statements, but I just also want to put on record na yung tinatanggap ko po yung apology ni Senator Lacson. Wala akong problema sa akin yon. Kaya lang po, ako yung nakikiusap sa lahat ng kasamahan natin na mag-ingat naman tayo sa statements because these are very troubling times. Everybody is so sensitive. Kung sino yung kakampi mo, lahat na ng ginawa niya tama. Kung sino yung kagalit mo, lahat na ng ginawa niya mali. So why would you make a statement that would arouse angry feelings or questions about my credibility or about anything that would, create any negative implication on your fellow senator. Sana po wag ganon. Yun lang sasabihin ko. Sana walang ganon. Kasi kung wala namang intensyon, di wag na lang sabihin, di ba? Yun lang naman po ang sa akin. Thank you very much.
Yes, emotions are high, but we are all called to a higher calling. We all have sentiments. I don't think it will be stopped. It will come out in the next few weeks depending on the issue. Having said that, as Senator Pangilinan said yesterday, maraming issue kailangan tumutok. For the record, sa kotse ko sumakay si Senator Bato, as he said. When I talked to him and said, how can I go in the Senate? I was aghast. Senador ka bakit problemang pumasok ka? But naisip ko yung commercial ni Amang Parika, yung sabi, sumakay ka pa. Kaya sabi ko, sa akin ka na sumakay. That's why it's so obvious that I knew he was here because when I spoke earlier. Having said that, an apology was made, an explanation was made, so move on from that. Senator Marcoleta, because you gave in to my request, I'm listed as first in the privilege speech. You're second. I will ask you if you want to go first.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I rise on a question of personal and collective privilege.
Senator Marcoleta is recognized.
The sponsors of Senate Resolution number 395, four of whom, despite differences, I have my respects, except for one, Mr. President, are urging Senator Ronald De La Rosa to voluntarily surrender to the peoples of the proper authorities and seek judicial remedies in accordance with the Constitution and applicable laws and rules. Mr. President, I respectfully oppose this resolution on the ground that the moment Senator De La Rosa surrenders, he will be immediately brought outside Philippine territory and deprived of the protection and remedies of Philippine laws and courts. To surrender Senator De La Rosa is to effectively surrender Philippine sovereignty itself. The International Criminal Court Pretrial Chamber 1, Mr. President, has confirmed that it issued a warrant of arrest against Senator De La Rosa on November 6, 2025. It unsealed the warrant only on May 11, 2026. The warrant orders the arrest and surrender of Senator De La Rosa. Under Article 102 of the Rome Statute, to surrender Senator De La Rosa is to deliver him to the custody of the ICC in the Netherlands, a foreign jurisdiction where Philippine laws have no force and Philippine courts can do nothing. While the sponsors pretend that they want Senator De La Rosa surrendered to authorities in the Philippines, in reality, they want him handcuffed, dragged to the airport, dumped on a plane, and banished to the clutches of the ICC in the Netherlands. While the sponsors claim they want Senator De La Rosa to avail of Philippine judicial remedies, in reality, they want him removed from territorial jurisdiction of the Philippine courts and therefore deprived of the rights and remedies that every Filipino enjoy under our laws and constitutional protection of due process. In fact, Mr. President, if the sponsors will have their way, Senator De La Rosa is transported to the Netherlands. The constitutional issues now pending before the Philippine Supreme Court will become moot and academic. The Philippine Supreme Court will be ousted of jurisdiction and prevented from fulfilling its constitutional mandate. There will be no end to this constitutional crisis, for in the years to come, the ICC, with much delight, will pick us up one by one, Mr. President. Only the Supreme Court, Mr. President, can stop this nonsense. The sponsors of Senate Resolution number 395 cited the service of warrants of arrest on the late former Senator Juan Ponce Enrile, former Senators Laila de Lima, and former Senator Antonio Trillanes. But please take note, Mr. President, they did not mention that their co-sponsor, Panfilo Lacson, evaded service of arrest warrant. The sponsors acknowledged that the late former Senator Enrile, former Senator De Lima, and former Senator Trillanes were all subjected to arrest warrants issued by local courts. For the record, Mr. President, all of them have exercised their rights under Philippine laws and availed of Philippine judicial remedies. Yet the sponsors are blind to the peculiar situation of Senator De La Rosa. Unlike the late Senator Enrile et al., who face arrest warrants issued by Philippine courts, Senator De La Rosa is facing an arrest warrant issued by the ICC, a foreign court which jurisdiction the Philippines does not recognize anymore. Moreover, unlike the former Senator Enrile et al., who availed of the rights and remedies of Philippine laws and courts, Senator De La Rosa will be deprived of all this, as he will be banished to foreign land on the other side of the planet, beyond the reach of Philippine laws, and forever detached from his family and constituents. Therefore, if the sponsors are sincere in their desire that Senator De La Rosa be accorded the same rights and remedies as those enjoyed by Senator Enrile et al., they should not allow his surrender to the ICC. They should instead withdraw Resolution Number 395. The sponsors recognize that under Republic Act 9851, it is the regional trial court that has exclusive original jurisdiction over offenses constituting crimes against humanity. This statement of the sponsors reinforces the position of the majority that the ICC warrant of arrest should not be implemented against Senator De La Rosa, and he must remain under the Senate custodial protection under the ICC arrest until the ICC arrest is quashed by Philippine court. First, Section 18 of RA 9851 provides that it is the Philippine Regional Trial Court that has exclusive original jurisdiction over crimes against humanity. Section 17 allows the transfer of jurisdiction to a foreign court only by way of extradition and provided by the Philippine court, provided the Philippine court is unable to try and decide the case. Therefore, from taking jurisdiction, the acts attributed to Senator De La Rosa. Kagaya po ng nasabi ko na kahapon, Mr. President, wala po tayong extradition treaty sa ICC. At wala na po tayong membership sa Rome Statute sapagkat nag-withdraw na po tayo. Sa makatid, wala na pong treaty. Yun po ay nakasaad sa Article 17 ng 9851. Second, at the United Nations, the Philippine government, through the permanent representative, pronounced that the state policy under RA 9851, Philippine courts have the exclusive jurisdiction over crimes against humanity. It also declared that Philippine courts have the competence and capacity to try and decide these cases. Kung ganun po pala, this is the national policy already articulated even before the halls of the United Nations. Bakit pinipilit pa natin na iserve ang isang warrant of arrest na hindi na natin kinikilala ang jurisdiction ng lintik na ICC na yan? Hence, the Philippine state policy is to assert and exercise local jurisdiction rather than recognize foreign jurisdiction such as that of the ICC. Third, the Philippine government has assumed and exercised local jurisdiction under RA 9851 over the crimes arising from extrajudicial killings allegedly committed by Senator De La Rosa. Philippine local jurisdiction already set in when Senator De La Rosa was served a subpoena by the CIDG in connection with its investigation of said extrajudicial killings. Senator De La Rosa has stated that he is ready to respond to the subpoena. It is of no moment, Mr. President, that today the CIDG withdrew the subpoena. It is a legal ruse. It's a legal ledger domain. Ang akala nila kung withdraw nila yung subpoena, wini-withdraw na yung case. No, Mr. President, the case is kicking and alive. It triggered already the jurisdiction of our National Prosecution Service and eventually the courts of this country. The crimes under investigation by the CIDG are the same crimes for which the ICC has issued a warrant, Mr. President. Under the principle of complementarity, said ICC arrest warrants can no longer be enforced because there is now a genuine domestic investigation and prosecution currently taking place in this country. Or the abuser and the person of Senator De La Rosa automatically and absolutely bar the ICC from exercising jurisdiction over the same acts and on his person. These circumstances, and by reason of the principle of complementarity and the Rome Statute, strip the ICC, Mr. President, of its jurisdiction. Therefore, given that the sponsors themselves admit that under Republic Act number 9851, Philippine courts have exclusive original jurisdiction over the crimes for which the ICC has issued an arrest warrant against Senator De La Rosa, given that the Philippines have assumed jurisdiction over said crimes when it served the subpoena on Senator De La Rosa, and given that Senator De La Rosa will respond to the subpoena, said sponsors cannot but agree that the ICC warrant of arrest should not be enforced on the good senator. It should be borne in mind, Mr. President, that the protective custody granted to Senator De La Rosa is for the sole purpose of ensuring the following. First, that only Philippine warrant of arrest, not an ICC warrant of arrest, will be enforced against him. Second, upon service of Philippine arrest warrant, he shall enjoy all the rights and privileges granted by the Constitution and the laws of the Philippines. Third, that he can avail of all Philippine administrative and judicial remedies and processes. Fourth, he shall remain in Philippine territory where he can exhaust all said administrative and judicial remedies and processes. And finally, and most important of all, the jurisdiction that the Philippines has assumed over his alleged crimes under R8 9851 must be exercised to the total exclusion of the ICC. Finally, Mr. President, the sponsors of Senate Resolution number 395 question the constitutional and statutory basis of the resolution granting De La Rosa, Senator De La Rosa, the protective custody of the Senate. These purposes, Mr. President, are legitimate. They do not contravene any Philippine law. In fact, they ensure that the Philippine laws are respected and enforced in Philippine territory to the exclusion of the Rome Statute that the Philippines no longer recognize by reason of its withdrawal therefrom. The protective custody granted to Senator De La Rosa addresses not only an extraordinary threat to his liberty, but also an existential threat to the integrity of the Philippine Senate, and by extension, a grave peril to the independence of the Republic itself from foreign interference. It is a threat emanating from a source that the Philippine Constitution laws did not anticipate. A foreign entity, Mr. President, the ICC, which jurisdiction is not only questionable but also lost due to the Philippines' withdrawal from the Rome Statute. The protective custody addresses a threat whose profound ramifications include regime change and outright interference in the sovereign affairs of the Philippines. To give inroads to the ICC is to enable it to structurally alter the Philippine Senate and disenfranchise Filipino voters for the arrested senator will be rendered futile, whose votes for the arrested senator will be rendered futile and meaningless. The ICC will transform Philippine agencies as its own puppet and tools and hold hostage Philippine officials, civilian and military, against whom it can initiate prosecution anytime and in perpetuity. The Senate's custodial protection is born out of self-preservation, which is the first law of nature for both men and institution, Mr. President. The Philippine Senate has granted custodial protection to witnesses in order to ensure the continuity and integrity of its legislative hearings. It is with more reason that it can and should grant custodial protection to its members to enable them to discharge their mandate unmolested by a foreign entity like the ICC and its local tentacles and subalterns. The Philippine Senate and its members enjoy privileges and immunities under the Constitution and laws so that they may discharge their functions effectively, efficiently. Specific privileges and immunities were designed to address the usual disruption to these functions. However, they did not anticipate disruptions from a foreign source. Thus, a purposive interpretation of the Constitution and laws is necessary in order for the Philippine Senate to meet new forms and sources of challenges. For this reason, Mr. President, it adopted Resolution Number 44 and implemented the same with respect to Senator De La Rosa. The Philippine Supreme Court did not also see it coming. It has to do its job and rise to the occasion, Mr. President. In the end, the dignity and integrity of the person of Senator De La Rosa, as well as of any member of the Senate, including the sponsors, represent the dignity and integrity of the institution of the Philippine Senate vis-a-vis foreign interference. Resolution number 395 will weaken its dignity and in the process destroy its integrity as an institution that stands as the last bastion of democracy. Dapat lamang na ibasura ang Resolution number 395. Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo.
Former Senate President, Minority Leader Senator Soto is recognized.
Thank you. Mr. President, parliamentary inquiry. I definitely don't mind after Senator Pia Cayetano took the floor because of the allegation that was brought out in media about her. So I definitely support that. But I wonder what happened to our agenda because after the roll call, and after Senator Pia Cayetano, I was expecting the reading of the journal be approved and in the reference of business before the privilege speeches. So may I know from the majority
To answer
leader?
the Minority Leader, it's not a privilege speech. He rose on a
Yeah, I know.
matter
It's,
of collective and personal privilege, which can be done anytime.
Yes,
and which has
I mean
priority.
Senator Pia Cayetano, there's no problem with that.
What I'm saying is that Senator Marcoleta,
I
I told
see.
him he can go ahead of me sa privilege speech, but he chose to rise on a matter of personal and collective privilege
All right,
instead
so-
of a privilege speech. That's my
right.
understanding.
All right, so my question actually is for the majority leader, but if that is the answer of the...
That's my understanding, Majority Leader. Am I correct?
then we will do away with the agenda if that is the case. Go ahead.
Actually, that's not true, Minority Leader, because the question of personal and collective privilege can be as simple as you cannot hear the sound, may tubig na tumutulo, or may mga police or NBI sa labas. So, collective and personal. Having said that, he gave his speech and we can now go to the agenda. However, Senator Padilla actually had the floor last night, and we only asked him and Senator Pangilinan if we, and of course, the graciousness of the Minority Leader, that we adjourn. So Senator Pangilinan is raising his hand and Senator Padilla is raising. What's the pleasure of Senator Pangilinan? But yes, go ahead, please.
Just a quick manifestation on the...
Yeah, if it's a Senator Padilla, manifestation lang, no?
Yes, just a quick manifestation
Yes.
on the earlier speech delivered by Senator Marcoleta. Mr. President, I understand the resolution has yet to be referred.
Yes.
It has not been calendared. And we believe, after consulting with the authors, as well as our minority leader, with due respect, we disagree with a number of the points and arguments raised by Senator Marcoleta, but that we prefer that the resolution be referred to the Committee on Rules, wherein we can discuss and perhaps hear it, Mr. President.
You're correct. We will follow the procedure. My
Thank you.
understanding is his rising on a question of personal privilege is why he took offense with the resolution.
And we share.
Yeah, and not the merits or
Yes.
whether or not we're going to pass it or not or put it on the floor.
Yes, and we're just sharing the sentiment
Yes.
of the authors that
That's
while
in
we
order.
object and do not agree with a number of the arguments raised by Senator Marcoleta, we would rather that the same be referred to the Committee on Rules, where we can ventilate the issue further.
Your manifestation is in order
Thank you, Mr. President.
and at the proper time because it's not in our calendar of business.
Yes, Mr.
Senator,
President. Mr. President, may I respectfully refer the personal and collective privilege of the good senator, Senator Dante Marcoleta, to the Committee on Rules, Mr. President. So move.
is there any objection? If not, it's referred to the Committee
Yes.
on Rules.
Mr.
Senator
President,
Padilla?
I was about to, with the indulgence and with the approval of the body, as mentioned a while ago by our distinguished Senate President, the floor was, yesterday, Senator Robin Padilla has the floor, and he is seeking the floor, Mr. President. May I be allowed first, Mr. President, to, may I move that we acknowledge and recognize the good gentleman, Senator Robin Hood Padilla.
Senator Padilla, you're recognized.
Maraming salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo, at sa ating pinunong mayorya. Mga mahal kong kasama, mga kagalang-galang kong kasama, at mga karespeto kong mga kasama, meron po akong naiwang usapin kahapon sa ating sesyon. Tungkol po ito sa asal o decorum ng isa sa ating kasamahan. Kaya naman, muli po akong humingi ng pagkakataon na makapagsalita ukol dito upang ipaalala at bigyang diin ang ating mga alituntunin dito sa Senado. Naniniwala po ako na mahalagang mapanatili natin ang respeto, paggalang at kaayusan sa bawat pagdinig at talakayan. Ayon po sa ating rules, ang sabi po dyan, Section 93, Rule number 34, Parliamentary Acts and Language. Ang sabi po dyan, acts and language which offend a senator or any public institution shall be deemed unparliamentary. Sa wikang Pilipino, ang mga kilos at pananalitang nakakasama ng loob sa isang senador o alinmang pampublikong institusyon ay itinuturing na hindi naaayon sa kagandahang asal ng parliamentaryo. Malinaw po na sutuntunin na ito ng Senado na anumang kilos at pananalitang nakakasama ng loob sa isang senador o sa alinmang pagpampublikong institusyon ay hindi katanggap-tanggap. Bilang sanggunian, ipapakita ko po sa inyo ang isang video ni Senador Kiko Pangilinan kung saan makikita ang isang mainit na palitan sa pagitan niya at ng isa pang nating senador at ngayon ay Senate President bilang halimbawa ng kontekstong aking tinutukoy.
Pwede mo ba sabihin sa anak mo, anak, pag mali sila, gumawa ka na rin ng mali. Anak, okay lang mangbastos kasi mas bastos sila eh. Anak, okay lang magbully kasi mas bully sila. Ako, hindi ko sasabihin yon. Ako, sasabihin ko,
At hindi yun ang sinasabi.
hindi, yun ang sinasabi mo, Mr. President, and I'm
No,
not yet
Mr.
finished.
President. Of
Kasi
course
you said, tama
We
si
beg to
Tariela.
disagree,
Mr. President, I'm not yet finished. No?
Well, we beg to
So,
disagree.
Mr. President, this is the question. The resolution,
Ayun po, nakita po natin na napakagandang halimbawa na ilang beses pong gustong magsalita ni Senator Kiko Pangilinan na hindi dumaan sa tamang procedure na hindi binanggit ang Mr. President. Pumapasok po siya sa usapan, ngunit naging magalang ang Senator Alan Peter Cayetano sa mabuting pananalita. Sinabi po niyang, I'm not finished. Kahapon po, nakita po natin ang pangbubulyaw ng ating kasama. Ang sabi po nila, tayo daw po ay balat sibuyas. Hindi po yan pagiging balat sibuyas. Ito po ay nasa rules of the Senate. At ang sabi din po ng ating dating Senate President, na ito daw po ay nangyayari talaga. Nagsisigawan. Mga mahal kong kasama, kung ikaw ay nagsasabi ng iyong talumpati at ikaw ay passionate, okay lang yun. Pero para sigawan mo ang kasama mo, nasaan ang rules of the Senate? Si Ginoong Kiko Pangilinan ng ating senador ay ilang beses na pong senador. Ako po ay neophyte kung tawagin. Napakainam po sana kung pakitaan niya ako ng magandang asal at ipakita sa akin na ganito, iho, ang pagsasabi ng I'm not finished. Hindi yung I have the floor with the burning eyes and the very high voice. Ladies and gentlemen, on record po ito. Nangyari po ito on record sa Senado. Humihingi po siya ng pag-abot ng kamay sa akin, hindi na on record. Paano ko po tatanggapin ang kamay niya? Ginawa niya yan on record. Kaya sana po, hinihingi po natin bilang pakikiisa sa aking dasal, na siya ay, kung siya talaga ay nais niyang mag-abot ng kamay, on record. Sabihin niya mismo sa plenaryo na siya ay nagkamali. Katulad po ng ginawa ni Senator Lacson na tumayo kanina at nagsabing siya ay nagkamali. Hindi po ito usapin ng lalabas tayo sa media at sasabihin mong balat sibuyas ako. Di tapon na natin itong rules of the Senate. Tapon na natin to. Di pa natin pala susundin eh. Mga mahal kong kasama, ang sinasabi ko dito, tanggalin natin yan sa record dahil ayokong mababasa yan ng aking mga anak at apo na ang isang Muslim senator ay sinisigaw-sigawan dito sa plenaryo. Yun lamang po. Maraming salamat po sa binigay niyong pagkakataon.
Thank you very much, Senator Robin Padilla. We recognize once again Senator Kiko Pangilinan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, ang suggestion ko ay dahil napanood ko kagabi sa balita na nais pong magsampa ng ethics case laban sa atin na si Senator Robin Padilla. So ang suggestion ko, isampa na yung ethics case at doon na po sa ethics committee natin pag-usapan ito dahil marami pang ibang mga mas importanteng bagay sa aking paniwala ang dapat nating talakayin. Maraming salamat po. For the record, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Senator Pangilinan. We recognize Senator Padilla once again.
Wala na po siguro mas importante kung rules of the Senate ang pinag-uusapan natin. So, ang ibig pong sabihin ba niyan na hindi kayang mahumingi ng paumanhin ng isang veteran senator? Para sa kanyang pagtaas ng boses? Yun po ba?
Nakikita ko po ang matamis ng ngiti ni Senator Kiko Pangilinan.
Napakahirap po bang sabihin nun? At kailangan pa natin umabot sa ethics?
May I suspend session first? Okay. Sige. So approval of Okay. Session is resumed.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, at this juncture, our distinguished Senate President, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano, would like to avail of the privileged hour. But before that, Mr. President, Madam President, may I be allowed to move that we dispense first with the reading of the journal of the 62nd session, May 11 and May 12, and consider the same as approved. I so move, Madam President.
Any objection? Hearing none. Motion is approved.
Madam President, our distinguished Senate President, Senator Alan Peter Cayetano, would like to deliver a privileged speech. I move that he be recognized, Madam President.
We recognize Senate President Alan Peter Cayetano for his privileged speech.
Thank you, Madam President. Dear colleagues, the book of James talks about faith, and the book of James basically tells us that faith without action is dead. So, importante po ang faith, pero importante po ay kumilos tayo ayon sa ating pananampalataya. Everyone has faith. Some people have faith in money, some people have faith in relationships, some people have faith in power. But of course, I'm talking about the faith in God, the faith in our country, and the faith in each other. So, Madam President, this leadership change is an opportunity for the Senate to take the lead in areas where the ordinary Filipino feel neglected. Without pointing fingers or no condemnation for any other leader or any other Congress in the past, let me talk about how I feel people feel at this point in time. I do believe that despite our algorithms in our social media and despite the news, most people are not talking about politics. Yes, they're talking about whether they like President Marcos, VP Sara, or all the other contenders. Whenever there are surveys in the news, pinag-uusapan sinong pambato nila sa 2028. But I would say that these are more politicians and political junkies. Most of our people are just trying to have a comfortable life, and more than that, just trying to exist. Yung personal safety lang, makapag-aral yung anak, madala sa ospital, or may gamot man lang kung may sakit, how to make ends meet, paano siguraduhin na kung part-time yung trabaho, magkasya, pag hindi part-time yung trabaho, siguraduhin na hindi magsara yung kumpanya o yung maliit na negosyo. People are thinking about the future of the country, but the reality is we act as individuals and as families and as communities before we act as a nation. Madaming umaasa sa leadership change na to sa pagdating ng direksyon ng ating bansa. So we can keep talking about Senator Bato. And 100%, I will always owe him for risking his liberty. And after siya habuling kahapon, risking his safety and his life, risking his quality time with his family, risking the many, many things that he can do for being here today. No one can say where he'll be going in the next few days, the next few weeks. I really hope we all realize that the Constitution is the highest law of the land. Me, I follow the Bible, then the Constitution. So walang anumang bansa ang inuuna ang international court sa kanilang sariling konstitusyon. Kahit anong treaty po, sabi po sa Pangilinan versus Cayetano Supreme Court case na kapag kayong treaty o nilalaman nito o implementation nito, I'm paraphrasing, is unconstitutional, ang masusunod yung Constitution, hindi po yung batas. So putting that aside, no, putting aside, like everyone else, I am tempted to talk about politics or to talk about Senator Bato. When we talk about corruption, partly it is about politics because the mishandling of the flood control scam, and when I say mishandling, I'm talking in general, whether you talk about the ICC, whether you talk about the whole of government, whether you talk about the DPWH, whether you talk about the Blue Ribbon Committee, even myself, even my participation in any of this investigation or non-participation, nilalahat ko na. We all mishandled it for many reasons. We didn't start with the truth. We didn't start with sino ang most guilty, ano ba talaga ang ghost, ano po ang hindi, etc. But the point is, Mr. President, Madam President, napakalaki ng issue na to in terms of amount and in terms of time and saan na ilagay. To give you a perspective, 50 billion lang ang budget ng DPWH in the last year of President GMA. But I think last year, 2025, kung na-release lahat, I think 2024, lumampas ng 1 trillion sa pesos sa DPWH alone. Pero hindi totoo na lahat ng flood control ay ghost. At hindi totoo na binulsa ang buong 1 trillion pesos or binulsa ang buong 350 billion. Pero yun ang tumatak. And the problem is, any Tom, Dick, and Harry na barangay captain, konsihal, mayor, congressman, even senators, administration, opposition, pag merong kang isang contractor dun sa lugar na yon, nakasama sa listahan, ang target hindi the truth eh. Ang target, dumihan yung kalaban. So, I remember from the start of my career, yung nagsasabi sa akin, pag naglabang kayo sa putikan, lahat kayo mapuputikan. No, you cannot get in the mud to fight someone and then, siguro si Bato, mukha ni Mr. Clean. But for the rest of us, when we're in the mud, di ba? The reality is, madudumihan tayo. And the problem there, the context that I want to say is that during a crisis, we have a global crisis, energy crisis, crisis of inflation, crisis of faith in government, crisis in international law with what the US, Iran and its allies, US and Israel are doing. The rule of law is being debated all around the world. Even Europe, the oldest allies of the US, many of the principles is being thrown out of the window every day. So there are several crises ongoing. Kung titignan lang natin from a political lens yung corruption, sabi natin political lang yan, partially true. Maraming gumamit ng flood control para tirahin lang yung kalaban. At the proper time siguro po, we'll go to that, but I don't want this to be a political speech. But look at it from a social, economic, and moral lens. From an economic lens, we did not only mishandle the investigation, but what to do when we found out of all this corruption. So government spending is so important to our GDP and productivity of our country, nag-slow down to. Until today po, hindi masyadong nagre-release ang DBM at nahihirapan pa rin ang DPWH at yung ibang ahensya na mag-bid. Maraming dahilan yan. Ito problema. Dalawa harapin natin. Tag-ulan, so malamang maraming baha na dadating. And wala naman nagbago since the flood control scam So malamang marami tayong baha. God forbid, sana hindi. But ang problema towards the end of the year, opposite naman ang problema. Meron daw po tayong super El Nino. So sobrang init at walang tubig, apektado naman ang ating agriculture. I hope all the predictions about the calamity and the state of our economy will be wrong. I hope it will be very, very much rosy. But if you look at the GDP projections, for example, since the last quarter last year, 50% off So pag sinabing 5%, 2.5%. Pag sinabing 6%, 3% lang. Ang layo. And the GDP might look like, a highfalutin economic term, and I'd rather use presyo, trabaho, kita. Masyado ba mataas ang presyo na hindi natin mabili yung dapat natin bilhin? Maliit ba masyado ang kita na hindi pa rin natin pwedeng bilhin yung gusto natin bilhin kahit mababa ang presyo? And trabaho. May trabaho ba ang tao? And not only trabaho na kumikita ang tao, but trabaho ba na may dignidad? So from an economic lens, corruption affects our everyday problems. And I think during the times that we talk about big scandals in our country, corruption scandals, suddenly, hindi lang presyo, trabaho at kita, hindi lang PTK, may isa pang K or C if English ang gagamitin natin, corruption. So right now, I feel that on the mind of every mother, of every father, of every lolo, lola, is the basics, health, education, pagkain, kuryente. Of course, sa mga highly urbanized, it's the internet, no? Food prices are steadily rising. Unfortunately, it seems that the 7% inflation rate is here to stay. Hindi mawawala yon. So just put it simply, kung kumikita ka ng 100 pesos in the year, 93 pesos lang ang halaga ng pera mo kasi 7% yung inflation. I mean, you can argue with me about the math, pero simplihan lang natin, di ba? If you have 1,000 pesos, 930 na lang yan. If you have 10,000 pesos, 9,300. So hindi masyado tumataas ang minimum wage at ang sahod sa ating bansa. Pero yung presyo ng bilihin, at least 7%. Yun ang problema natin sa food prices. Bakit po? Hindi naman po lahat sa inflation rate ay food prices, although most of it is food prices. So food is rising even higher than 7%. We are an archipelago where we lack fish. Hindi tayo makapagpangisda. I mean, I know Senator Pangilinan spoke much about this and many other senators in the past, but that's a reality now. Hindi natin makalimutan yung mga ka-age ko na ang isang kampanya po ni Madam President Cory Aquino noon is magkano ang presyo ng galunggong at that time in 1986. And short time after that or sometime after that, nag-i-import na tayo ng galunggong. Ngayon po, luxury na po ang galunggong. In fact, nung araw sabi sa amin, may asin ka lang, o I remember yung kwento ng aming dating Vice Mayor, may kapitbahay siya na may mga shell ng kuhol. So gagataan nila yon at libre pa naman ang kangkong nung araw. Pagkatapos nila gataan at kainin yon, ibibilad nila yung shell. Bakit po? Kasi pag hiniram nung kapitbahay yung shell, gagataan ulit dahil ang kailangan mo lang ay yung gata at saka yung kangkong, tapos yun ang ulam sa kain. But we know in the last 10 years, pati kanin naging luxury na. Kaya nga may makikita kang pamilya ng 4, 5, 6, 7, isang noodles na hati-hati na. Of course, we did not ignore that. We have passed many laws making sure that we fortify even the noodles. We have kahapon, Senator Tulfo, yung AIX law. We have many interventions, no? But this crisis that we are facing, hindi natin ramdam kaagad dito sa Senate kasi air condition, kasi kahit papano, mataas ang sweldo. Di ba? Ang unang nakaramdam nito, mga tricycle driver, jeepney driver, yung mga naka-diesel. Pero nabigyan isang beses ng ayuda, that doesn't mean okay na sila. Kasi pababa ng pababa yung kanilang kita. More than 70 days after February 28, the economic slowdown is now affecting our investment level. Even the sentiment, nagdadahan-dahan na. And even yung mga sigurado, katulad halimbawa ng mga pharmaceuticals, medyo wala kailangan mo talaga bumili ng gamot kung may sakit ka. But most of our medicine is imported. And even those that are generic and are produced in the Philippines, to get them through Metro Manila with the traffic and the logistic costs have doubled. Not to mention if you have to bring it to Masbate, you have to bring it to Aklan, to Catanduanes, to Romblon. The logistics in Mindanao or even Batanes is incredible because, again, apektado tong lahat. The prices of gas was expected to go back to normal during the first few days of the crisis. Unfortunately, tinamaan yung critical infrastructure. So halimbawa po, sa Qatar at Bahrain, nung tinamaan po ang natural gas, ang subproduct or yung byproduct ng natural gas is urea or yung pangunahing ingredient or ginagamit na fertilizer. So 3 kagad yung tama. Bakit? Europe uses liquefied gas or natural gas for heating. So tumaas ang presyo ng diesel dahil yun ang kapalit. Tapos nung tinamaan yung production ng yung mismong planta ng urea, tumaas ngayon yung presyo ng fertilizer. India, who has the best processing plants or one of the best and supplies to us and to Asia, ang problema, they have more than 1.4 billion people. And they also use heating gas, they also use diesel, they also use urea, and they are the first to say, we will not export rice, we will not export fertilizer unless our needs are there. So I thank the Vietnamese government for continuing to help us by the supply of rice. In a recent survey, only 10% of people believe that government, so hindi lang po to hindi lang to Office of President, Vice President, Senate, House, local governments, although ang tingin ko kung magsa-survey tayo, mas mabango ang mga local governments kasi sila ang frontline. Only 10% of people believe that we are actually addressing the high prices of even the basic goods. 90% says that inflation, wages, 95% says that all of these are serious issues. 75% says that corruption has increased in the last 12 months. Not only that we're not addressing it properly. So once we think that corruption is a way of life, I will go. So I went to the political, talking about the economic. I will now go to the social and the spiritual. Once we start believing na hindi natin to kaya, once na naniwala tayong bahala na, once na sinabi natin, hindi, corruption, hindi natin matatanggal yan, it's our soul that gets damaged. We start believing that values can be changed. We start believing that, yeah, konting corruption, okay na rin yan, etc. Economically, there are empirical facts that some nations, certain level of corruption did not affect their corruption. The corruption did not affect their economics, but it did affect their soul, and eventually it affected not only their economics, but their being one nation. In the group I've been with in the last few years, which is Transforming the Nation, one of the teaching is that there are 7 spheres or 7 mountains of culture: family, church, government, business, education, health, and media. Media is both the artistry and also the journalism. Ang sabi po dun kasi, if you want real change, and let me go back to the Bible, the first thing the Lord Jesus said, and I'm addressing myself to Christians, and Brother Robin and anyone from a different religion can of course also relate or parallelize what I've been saying here. But in the Christian faith, ang unang sinabi ni Lord Jesus, repent, which means change your mind, magbago, magsorry, magbago, because the kingdom of heaven is near. At ang kasunod po dito as a priority, when the apostles saw miracles after miracles, they saw the Lord Jesus healing people, producing bread, producing fish when there was none. Pero they were going on a journey and they were looking at each other. Wala namang Burger King, McDonald's, Wendy's nung araw. Wala rin naman dun mga kotse or EVs or trains. So they're looking at each other and thinking, saan tayo kukuha ng pagkain? Saan tayo matutulog? The Lord Jesus looked at them and said, seek first the kingdom and my righteousness. But he didn't stop there. And everything else shall be added unto you. So my point of view is that there is a value system. There's a heavenly value system. There's an earthly value system. In the earthly value system, we value power, we value money, we value popularity, we value the GDP, etc. In the heavenly, they value people. That's why in the Christian faith, God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whoever shall believe shall be saved and shall not perish. So why? Because God loved the imperfect man so much. So what's my point? If family and church and media come together at sinabing, oh, sobra na tong scam ng ating, I was going to say fertilizer scam, but that was 20 years ago, flood control scam. And they have a MOA. Nag-MOA ang DPWH, nag-MOA ang Congress, ang BICAM, ang Executive Department, ang DBM, church leaders from the Muslim community, the Roman Catholic community, Evangelical community, Iglesia ni Cristo, Seventh-day Advent, lahat nandun, nagpirmahan. that will have some effect. But if the media, for example, movies, are saying, okay lang naman magnakaw basta't konti. Or iba na yung nakakalamang, etong anak ko, medyo hindi ganun kagaling sa school, pero magaling mangopya eh. Kaya honor siya. Or let's say in health, di ba? Kung sasabihin sa kanya na, alam mo, hindi ka gagaling kung wala tong gamot na to, pero di ba na, nakawin na lang natin kasi corrupt din naman ang gobyerno. My point is, Madam President, family, the church, government, business, education, health, and media have to work together to address all of these issues. And let me close by a quote from a manual I read. Anya Dique po, ang pangalan po, ang last name nung gumawa. Sabi niya, nung naging Christian daw ang Africa, lalong naging corrupt. And in her country, she was saying that nung dumami ang Christians, dumami ang corruption, sumama ang politika, much as we are experiencing now, nawalan daw siya ng gana, nawalan siya ng pag-asa, nag-pray daw siya. Sabi niya, Lord, ayoko na sa politika, ayoko na sa public, ayoko na sa gobyerno. Walang pag-asa tong bansa namin. In one of her meditations daw, the Lord told her, ang problema, you want a political solution for a spiritual problem. You want an economic solution for a spiritual problem. You want a socio-economic political problem, solution for a spiritual problem. So, Madam President, I stand here today humbled by the task that you put on my shoulders, pledging to serve not only the 13 who voted to put me in place here in the Senate, but for the 24, but to serve first God and serve our people. I ask this August Chamber, baguhin natin direksyon natin. May mga iba wala tayong choice. So pagdating ng articles of impeachment, forthwith, we will act upon it. This leadership change is not about the impeachment. All of us here will be on trial and we will all do our best and we have to be impartial. Okay, that's clear. Having said that, paano natin isasabay ang problema ng corruption? And having said that, pag corruption, mahilig tayo magturo sa mga kasama natin eh. Maybe it's necessary kung guilty talaga. Maybe it was done for political purposes. Saka na natin pag-usapan yon. But we have to find a way to investigate and change the corruption system in our country without burning the whole house down. Diba? I mean, kung may anay sa bahay, tanggalin yung anay. Kung may mga daga sa bahay, hulihin ng daga o patayin, tanggalin sa bahay, hindi mo susunugin yung buong bahay. No? But thirdly, Madam President, the economics. Kapit sa patalim ang maraming Pilipino. There are many things we can do. For example, we have had a lot of laws for agricultural modernization. But we need a productivity law for agriculture. Palaki ng palaki ang ating population, pero yung productivity natin, nagpla-plateau eh. Tapos lalo ngayon na may Super El Nino, sabi nila ang fiscal space natin maliit. Yes, kasi nga during the 6 years o 5 years ng Aquino, maganda yung ekonomiya until the pandemic, 3.5 years ng Duterte, maganda yung ekonomiya. But since then, we have borrowed heavily. So yung debt to GDP natin medyo mabigat na, and then yung credit ratings natin apektado na. But still, Fidel Ramos was in a worse case. And he was able to say 10% savings at ilipat yung 10% na yun sa mga priorities. Korea at one point in time had so much faith in their leaders that they sold personal owned jewelry to pay their national debt and to rise up. Japan was devastated by 2 atomic bombs. But look at Japan now. So, Madam President, I'm here to stand today to say, let's list down our priorities together with the minority. Ano yung 5, 7, 10 na pinaka-importanting batas? So I'm meeting with the LEDAC people tomorrow kasi may LEDAC sa Tuesday. And hopefully, any member of this Senate submit to the Secretariat by tonight or tomorrow. Ano yung priority? But ang akin lang ipapakiusap sa inyo, wag muna yung personal advocacy kahit ating bansa. Many of our bills are important. Many of our bills have been pending for 50 years. Many of our bills are controversial. But I am sure there are 3, 4, 5, or maybe 7 or 10 bills in agriculture, in health, in education, in finances of this beloved country that we can do para pag sinabi, tara, trabaho na tayo. Hindi trabahong politika. Hindi trabahong tirahan, hindi trabahong bato-bato sa langit pag dumating sa Senado, sinong magagalit. Hindi po. Trabahong tapos na yun eh. Tapos na Monday, tapos na kahapon. I'd like to take this opportunity. Ang CIDG po nagsabi today, kung tama yung news report, they will respect our having custody of Senator Bato. So, hindi na siya isusupina. But with the permission of Senator Bato, if they want to investigate the EJK, they can come here and they can interview you. Di ba? None of us are above the law. I'd like to thank Secretary Remulla for the assurance that we will follow the law. The NBI, sinabi, iba dati, iba ngayon. So again, Madam President, yes, we will have to sometimes mention or go to the political aspects. No? I want to honor Senator Pia for saying yesterday, pwede ba ituloy ang hearing? So my good friend, nag-hello ako sa likod. I didn't know she'll be here. Waya, the farmers could have had their hearings. Di ba? Senator Erwin, ang daming pending sa kanya. I was assuring him, pag wala naman objection sa floor, lahat ng dapat i-sponsor na. But I haven't consulted all 13 of my colleagues yet because we didn't have time a while ago. I also wanted to honor one of our colleagues who stood up during the break, Senator Win Gatchalian, and did a good job sa Protect hearing. No, I also believe that talagang itatayo naman ng executive yung uplift. But tingin ko, napabilis at napataas yung uplift dahil sa Protect. So at the proper time, Majority Leader, if there's no objection from everyone, I would ask if today we can ask him to continue as chairman of Protect. Because precisely everything I've said today, maybe except the spiritual side, but Win is also a brother in Christ, and regardless of our religion, you know, the spiritual side is always there when we love our neighbors. So, Madam President, dear colleagues, thank you for this opportunity to give me this opportunity to express what really is in my heart and mind. So may God bless the Philippines and God bless us all as we humble ourselves before the Lord and God.
Thank you very much, Senate President Alan Cayetano. We take note of everything that you said. And Majority Leader,
Yes,
when will
Madam
this be
President, as much
referred?
as I wanted to give my views as well and not to belabor the list of our colleagues who wanted to deliver their speeches. The gentleman from Palawan, I think Senator Erwin Tulfo, would like to ask some questions. I move that he be recognized, Madam President.
We recognize Senator Erwin Tulfo. Is this a manifestation or
No,
interpellation?
Madam President,
Yes.
this is not a manifestation or interpellation. Rather, it is, I would like to address this to our new Senate President while he's still on the floor. It's a parliamentary inquiry. It is regarding on the status of the motion made by Senator Kiko Pangilinan yesterday on the holdover capacity of the outgoing Senate committee chairpersons in relation to Section 19 of the rules of the Senate as raised by Senator Escudero. May we know, Mr. President, your ruling on this?
Yes. Thank you. May I ask permission from the presiding officer and the Majority Leader to answer?
Madam President,
before
before
that-
we entertain the
Yes.
parliamentary inquiry, may we refer, if there's no other member of this august chamber who would ask questions with regard to the privilege speech of our...
Yes, let me
before
just
we
remind the
entertain
body.
because
Yes.
it's outside the privilege speech. Unless the inquiry would be from the privilege speech of our Senate President, from the gentleman from
Let
Palawan?
let us put it in context. The good gentleman from Palawan stated that this is not a manifestation or an interpellation. We will answer him at the proper time. In the meantime, may I hear from the majority leader the referral of the privileged speech of the Senate President, assuming nobody wishes to interpellate. But we will not forget the parliamentary inquiry of Senator Erwin Tulfo. Thank you.
Yes, Madam President, I was told that the gentleman from Valenzuela, Senator Win Gatchalian, would just like to make a short manifestation with regard to the privilege speech.
We
May I
recognize.
move that he be recognized, Madam President?
We recognize Senator Sherwin Gatchalian.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Majority Leader, and to our Senate President. Maraming salamat po at na-mention po yung Protect kanina at nagpapasalamat po ako dahil ito po ay brainchild ng ating Senate President Alan Cayetano, ang dati nating Senate President Tito Soto, and the former Majority Leader, si Senator Mig Zubiri. The timing was impeccable. Importante po yung timing. At nung bago ho tayo nag-adjourn, yun po yung kahuli-hulian nating binuo itong ad hoc committee. At kaagad ay nagkaroon ho tayo ng hearing at kaagad nagbigay ho tayo ng 49 recommendations before the Holy Week. In fact, I will give a privilege speech on those 49 recommendations, of which halos kalahati po ay na-implement po ng ating executive branch. Importante po yung timing, no? Because timing is everything. At that time, kahit napapunta ho tayo ng break, ang Senado ay umakto na mabilis para po ma-analisa, makita po yung problema, at magbigay po ng recommendation kaagad. Marami dito sa recommendation ay executive action, pero I agree with our Senate President, marami rin ho dito kakailanganin ng further study, further analysis, as well as legislative action. So, papasalamat po ako sa mabilis ng action ng ating kapulungan. Maraming salamat.
Thank you very much, Senator Gatchalian. Let me just put on record na dahil nauna ang Protect Committee as chaired by Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, nung nakaraang susunod na araw ay doon nagtatag ng komite ang executive pagkatapos ng Senado, if my
Madam President.
dates are correct. So thank you, Senator Sherwin.
And Madam President.
We recognize Senator Cayetano.
And the context of, I actually had a conversation with Senwin, but of course I said I'll consult the majority members. What I did, instead of attending the Protect, because I saw you very decisive there, I saw Senator Marcoleta, Senator Joel, I think Senator JV attended. Of course, Senator Win was always there. Senator Erwin was there. So what I actually did is to ask businesses by groups, pharmaceutical, manufacturers, EVs, to meet me in a small room, 4-5 at a time. Yung iba, I didn't ask them permission to ask their name, but sabi ko, Senwin, in a big business group, no? So yung pinaka dumating sa akin, humahanap sila ng clarity. But yung mga kwento nila, for example, FDA. Pero sabi nila, sir, panay FDA pinag-uusapan nyo, pero problema din namin yung HTA. Di ba? So tapos, sir, importer kami, but to get it to the rest of the country, mataas ngayon. So you might think just because we're a multinational, yung toll doesn't matter. The toll can determine kung tataas ang presyo o hindi, di ba? So hindi lang so I'd really like to give them an opportunity if they want to. And Senator Win said that that's a good idea. That's why I think tama naman si Sen Win na, di ba, parang ano yan parang first aid yung timing napaka-importante. But even if na-stabilize mo na, siya naman nag-stabilize during that time, baka pwede niya nang ituloy hanggang gumaling yung pasyente, which is our nation, no? And our nation's economy. That was the context there, Madam President.
Thank you. May we hear the referral?
Yes, Madam President, before we refer, I would just like to put into the records of this August chamber my appreciation of the privileged speech of our Senate President. I would like to congratulate him for his magnanimity, especially in accepting the fact that there are good things that were started, no, in this August chamber, at hindi niya yon ipipigilin kung lalo na kung maganda yung nangyayari. I also admire his stand on impeachment, and I am also with him. Ang Supreme Court nagbigay na ng definition as to forthwith, and higit sa lahat yung Mark 8:36 na sinasabi ng Bible that what profits a man if he gains the whole world and lost his soul in hell forever. So it's a good reminder for all of us that walang forever dito sa lupa, Madam President. And so with that, I move that we refer the privileged speech of Senate President Cayetano and manifestations thereon to the Committee on Rules. So move, Madam President.
It's referred to the Committee on
On
Rules.
Rules,
Yes, no objection. It's therefore referred to the Committee on Rules. Thank you very much, Senator Cayetano.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, Madam President.
Before that, session is suspended. Session is resumed. Before we suspended, there was a parliamentary inquiry of Senator Erwin Tulfo.
Yes, Madam President, may
Yes.
we move that we recognize Senator Erwin Tulfo.
We recognize Senator Erwin Tulfo.
Yes, Madam President, while our new Senate President is still on the floor, I did ask him about his ruling because it was unclear yesterday when this was raised yesterday afternoon by Senator Kiko Pangilinan about the holdover capacity of outgoing Senate committee chairpersons in relation to Section 19 of the Rules of the Senate. So may we know now the decision, the wisdom of the new Senate President.
Thank you, Madam President. May I proceed?
Please proceed, Mr. Senate President.
So again, thank you for the clarificatory question, Senator Tulfo. So the context was yesterday I announced in reaction to both some inquiries and also to a inquirer.net post that the inconveniences suffered by some of our guests. So I reiterated that Senator Pia asked me Monday whether they can proceed or do we need to elect the new chairpersons for scheduled hearings. So officially, we pointed out to Section 19, and of course, Senator Pangilinan saw some inconsistencies. My ruling was that you always look at the rule and the practical situation, and if there's a way to harmonize, then you harmonize. So having said that, I think the second question of Senator Tulfo, and please correct me if I'm wrong, when I approached him a while ago, is what about the bills that are on the floor for sponsorship or already on the agenda or already filed and signed and ready for sponsorship? So again, any of our colleagues can correct me if I'm wrong. I was telling him if it's a non-controversial, meaning we all agree on it, we have the same direction, then it'll be a conversation between the new chairperson, the majority leader, and him and Senator Tulfo, because usually if you were already sponsoring it, the new chairperson allows you to sponsor it. Of course, for example, the new chairperson and the old chairperson might disagree, let's say, if there are amendments, and these amendments, let me use the AIX for example, no? So for example, if half of us do not believe that there should be a penal clause for the prohibited acts and half do, and it was still on the sponsorship level, we'd probably give that discretion to the new chairman. And the new chairman would probably say, I want to continue it because we have strong feelings. But most of the bills, I think, will really be between the author, the former chairman, and the new chairman. Of course, the authority is with the new chairman, but we're a collegial body. So, put it another way, wala tayong mapapasa kung hindi tayong magko-compromise at magpapakiusapan. No? But to assure the gentleman that we want to take out any delays, we seek to complete by Monday the chairmanships. And I think today we're ready with the ratio, no? Because we have a 13-9-2, 13-11 or 13-9-2, or the two can choose to have their own ratio, or they can choose to join majority-minority. So like Senator P and I in 2022 were independent, but at one point Senator Miggs asked me or his staff that could you join the majority for purposes of the ratio, and I don't think that's a problem, no? Usually mas controversial sa CA at saka sa SET, but I'm confident that Senator Soto and myself have solved this already twice, when Senator Escudero was SP and when he was SP. So if there is an odd number, I think we will be able to solve that.
Thank you, Mr. President, Madam President. If that is the case, then I would like to manifest that, Mr. President, the change of leadership should not prevent this chamber from acting on measures that are already ripe for sponsorship and plenary discussions. In fact, many of our bills and conventions have been included in the weekly agenda, this weekly agenda. And then next week, Mr. President, we are planning to do the same. For example, like what you have mentioned, under my chairmanship of the Committee on Social Justice, the bill institutionalizing the AIX was passed yesterday, and we would like to thank the Senate President for that on third reading and ripe for BICAM. Under the Committee on Foreign Relations, though, Madam Chair, Mr. President, the four conventions of nuclear safety, liability, and management of hazardous waste treaties that ensure clear accountability measures in case of nuclear incidents are now for sponsorship. Also for sponsorship, Mr. President, are the Tokyo Convention, which seeks the recognition of qualifications in higher education, wherein our Madam President is one of the co-author, for fair opportunities and dignity for Filipino professional students abroad. Also, Mr. President, Madam President, the status of visiting forces agreement with Canada and New Zealand, respectively, which aims to build a broader coalition in the Pacific and improve our disaster response. Therefore, Mr. President, respectfully move to allow the outgoing chairpersons to proceed with the committee hearings, sponsorship, and participation in bicameral conference proceedings for measures already referred to or acted upon by the respective committees until their successors, which I believe that will be on Monday, Mr. President, that's what you've said, shall have been elected or designated consistent with Section 19 of the Rules of the Senate. But there's a lot of bills, Mr. President, that are that needs immediate sponsorship. Case in point, Mr. President, Madam President, Senate Bill 1905, or the Act Providing for Magna Carta of Barangay Health Workers, sponsored by Senator Rizon Tiberos. Senate Bill 1511, Amendment to RA 9439, Act Prohibiting Detention of Patients in Hospitals and Medical Clinics. Ito po ay mga proteksyon para sa mga pasyente, Madam President, Ginoong Pangulo, na dapat po nating talakayin at maisabatas po at kailangan po, Ginoong Pangulo. Nariyan din po, Ginoong Pangulo, Senate Bill 1584, yung Amendment to Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act na sponsored po ng ating kasama si Senator Robin Padilla. Nariyan din po ang Senate Bill 1988, mandating accessibility, inclusivity in all tourism sites for persons with disabilities, senior citizens, sponsored naman po ni Senator JV at Senador Camille Villar. Nariyan din po yung Senate Bill 2092, an act declaring waling-waling as the national orchid of the Philippines, sponsored by Senator Loren Legarda. So, Ginoong Pangulo, ang tanong ko po, maaari po ba, if we are bound to follow the rules, specifically Section 19, shouldn't we follow the status quo, Mr. President?
Senator Marcoleta asked if he can,
Thank you, Mr.
with the
President.
permission of Senator.
Go ahead po.
We recognize Senator Marcoleta.
Interject.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate the problems being encountered by Senator Erwin. Pero masasabi ko po, Mr. President, mas maswerte siya sa akin dahil siya po ay nakitaan ko na ng napakarami pong mga bills niya na nag-transition na po sa third reading. May na-report na po yung mga committee, mga nakapag-report na po. At yung iba nga po ay naidepensa niya dito natin sa ating bulwagan. Ako po yung tatlong major bills ko po na inaasahan ko po sana na ma-fast track. Pagkatapos po ng 8 buwan bago lang po na hearing, minsan lang po eh. Yung isa po, nasa pang 10 buwan na po, yung pong 12% VAT reduction sa sales ng electricity. Baka sakali pong ma-agenda na po for first hearing po. Wala po. Kami po ang dapat magreklamo sapagkat walang lumilitaw po sa mga inaakala naming mga major bills na makakatulong po sa ating mga mamamayan. Naintindihan ko po yung kanyang discomfort sapagkat gusto niya talaga na maisulong lahat ang mga inaakala niyang panukalong batas na makakatulong. Ganon din po ang representasyong ito, Mr. President. Pero hindi po ako nawawalan ng pag-asa kasi alam ko po, yung ating legislative meal po ay unpredictable. Ang dami po. There are 1,001 factors that might come in and interfere in our deliberations and entire process of enacting a particular bill. So sana po ay magkaunawaan na lamang tayo. Hindi lamang po kayong naapektuhan. Mas lalo po ako, isip-isipin po ninyo, 10 buwan na po nakakaraan. Yung isa pong bill na para sa akin ay napaka-importante. Lalong-lalo na po ngayon sapagkat tumaas na po ang lahat. Hindi pa po, na-agenda na po last week, kaya nga nagkaroon po ng disruption ngayon. Baka sakali pong may agenda na sa lalong madaling panahon. Salamat po, Ginoong Pangulo.
Madam President, to answer directly Senator Tulfo, may I proceed?
Please proceed.
Yeah. So first, for measures already on the floor, there's no reason it cannot proceed. We will have a majority caucus as soon as we adjourn. I think Senator Win will speak. I don't know if anyone else will speak. So as soon as we can start our caucus, we'll take that up. For COM reports that are not yet filed, it's more of prudence because we have to finalize the membership, the 1392. From 11-13, it was a 15-9 ratio. So there's a little bit of difference. But again, this shouldn't be a problem in non-controversial bills kasi nag-uusap-usap. Having said that, my suggestions also is that we resubmit what are our priority 10 bills. And then I personally will talk to the new chairpersons. If they will not hear it with a certain period of time, can we create a subcommittee? Which we usually do naman. I remember the first time I was senator, Senator Angara. Ed was such a senior senator then, but sabi niya, Alan, create ng subcommittee, pero ako na mag-hear nito. And then he took over, and natuto ako sa ganun move kasi pati pala merienda, chairman magbabayad, pero siya yung nag-hear. But bumilis tuloy lahat, no? The third one is maybe, I'm sure the minority leader will be in the LEDAC. Once we get a sense of the timing of the impeachment, we have to discuss either the legislative calendar and the schedule of the impeachment. Because if we can do both, remember when we talk about legislation, there's the hearings and then there's plenary. You need time for both. So assuming we agree on 3 or 4 days nung hearing, is that half day para meron pa rin legislative meal? Kasi kailangan mo din ng 1 day ng motion day. Lahat ng korte ay merong isang araw na may motion para masubmit. Tapos merong, usually, if I'm not mistaken, it's a Friday. Para nga during the weekend, mabasa lahat ito. Di ba? And that is barring any, my wife is from Bicol, from Tiwi Albay. So, I ask you to pray harder with us na hindi mag-worsen yung sitwasyon ng Mayon, di ba? You know, any calamity from the super El Nino to storms, linogs, or earthquakes, or yung pagputok ng bulkan, no? Whether it's in Negros or etong sa Albay, we'll definitely need, in our situation now, we'll need our attention, whether individually or as a group or the committee. So we really have to figure out as a body. So that was the essence nga ng aking speech. So thank you for pointing out, Senator Tulfo, that in fact there are urgent necessary bills that are there. Last point, I did start going to the possible chairmans yesterday. So like Senator Bongo, who will most probably be our chairman of the Committee on Health, said that most of the bills tinitignan niya, but most of the bills walang problema, pwedeng siya, pwedeng si Senator Risa. I actually approached Senator Aimee about the treaties, and she told me, go ahead. But then when I went to see her today, she said, go ahead, but malamang hindi ko kunin yung committee na yon. So mali pala yung nakonsulta ko. So I have to talk to sino magiging chairman. And as you know, we are in need of a regular or full-time majority leader because Senator Joel Villanueva is not disposed to accept that position. If you want to join the majority, so far the majority leader is open, Senator Tulfo.
Yeah, that's a good offer, but let me think about it,
And
Mr.
that would
President.
give us an even number of 14, easier for computation.
Let me seek divine guidance, Mr. President.
No, I
Every
believe
morning
in
when
that.
I
I
wake
believe in
up,
that, yeah.
I ask and pray to the Holy Spirit to always guide me for right decisions, Mr. President.
And I praise you for that because we all should do that. No? Yeah.
Well, anyway, Madam President, Mr. President, we're amenable to that, to the creation of subcommittees. We hope that the new chairpersons, Mr. President, will honor your word. I will not stay longer, Mr. President. Therefore, we submit to the wisdom of our new Senate President. Thank you, Madam
Thank you,
President.
Senator Tulfo.
Thank you, Senator Tufo. We recognize Senator Risa Ontiveros.
Salamat, Madam President. Not to interpolate the good gentleman from Taguig, but
You're always welcome,
and
my
Pateros.
colleague in several congresses in
yes.
different times of crisis and of generosity in our country. You can interpolate me anytime.
Salamat, Madam President, good gentleman. But it's really just to thank the good gentleman from Palawan dun po sa pagbanggit muli sa dalawa sa bills na hiningan ko ng clarification kahapon sa Senate President. Ang mga kalahating dosena ito, and thank you, Senator Erwin, sa pagbanggit muli dun sa Anti-Hospital Detention Bill at saka yung Magna Carta of Barangay Health Workers Bill. Dahil ito po, Madam President, itong dalawa ay halimbawa ng ready for amendments na on the floor. So, nagpapasalamat po ako kay Senator Erwin at dahil nag-motion sila kanina kung itatakal po yan, sinasegundahan ko po subject to the decision of the new leadership, kung alin sa mga bills na ito sa iba't iba nating mga komite na hinug na for completion of a certain period, for example, in the legislative process,
So-
para at least maisara na po. So yun
So
lamang
just for
po,
the information of
Mr. Madam
everyone,
President.
after the speech of Senator Win, the majority will go into a caucus. You're most welcome to join us if you're going to join the majority. Afterwards, on Thursday, I will be meeting the Secretary General, the Deputy Secretary Generals, the COMSECs, the other department heads, and I did this in the House of Representatives to encourage them and empower them. So parang bibingka, yung apoy na sa ibabaw na sa ilalim. So on one hand, the chairman will make certain decisions, but we want to empower the COMSECs to push. And tamang-tama yung timing kasi when we were planning this yesterday, nagsabi nga na may LEDAC sa Tuesday. So right after the luncheon, which will talk about legislation and how to prioritize and how do you call it, work very productively in the box, but how to work out of the box. We will be also meeting with the LEDAC Secretariat at 3 o'clock. No? So yun lang po, if you can submit by today or tomorrow, what's your top 10 bills, but maybe put an asterisk or whatever. What's the 7 or 10 bills we can agree on as a body that will really help us during this time of crisis. No?
Salamat po sa
Thank
good
you.
gentleman from Taguig Pateros, Madam President, and I will happily and proudly stay with the minority.
Thank you.
Thank you,
For now,
Senator Ontiveros.
I will accept that answer for now, Madam President.
Thank you. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this juncture, Mr. President, the gentleman from Davao and Isabela, Senator Rafi Tulfo, would like to deliver a privileged speech. I move that he be recognized.
We recognize Senator Rafi Tulfo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Madam President, my dear colleagues, today I wish to address an urgent public health issue that is silently but steadily affecting the Filipino people. Ang pagtaas ng kaso ng chronic kidney disease. Ito po ang bato na gusto ko pong ipaaresto. Ang bato sa kidney. Pero kidding aside, Madam President, an estimated 13 million Filipinos are diagnosed with various stages of chronic kidney disease or CKD. This makes up for 11.2% of the Philippine population. Ibig sabihin, sa bawat 10 tao dito sa plenaryo, may isang may CKD, unfortunately. According to the Philippine Society of Nephrology, every hour, kada oras, may isang Pilipino na nagkakaroon ng chronic renal failure. At kung dati pang senior citizen lang ang sakit na ito, ngayon, 57.44% of kidney disease patients ay nasa 20 to 59 years old. Pabata ng pabata ang mga pasyente ng CKD. Hospitals across the country are reporting new cases among children and teenagers, some as young as 4 years old, who are already grappling with the realities of kidney failure. In fact, I have come face to face with these young CKD patients. At nakita ko po ang lungkot sa kanilang mga mata dahil alam nilang habang buhay na nila ito kakaharapin. Itong si Mariano Trias ay na-diagnose noong siya ay 30 taong gulang pa lang. Si Ron Ryan Jacinto na-diagnose naman noong 16 years old pa lamang siya. At 6 na taon nang nagda-dialysis. At si RG Sibulan, 4 years old pa lang nang ma-diagnose at halos 10 taon nang nagda-dialysis dahil sa stage 5 ng CKD. I invite you to watch this short video.
Halos tumira na sa ospital ang 14 years old na si RG dahil sa kanyang matinding karamdaman, ang chronic kidney disease. Ang kanyang kalbaryo nagsimula sa murang edad na 4 na taong gulang pa lamang.
Hindi na sumasagay sa isip pag sumuko. Gusto ko masaya lagi. Masaya lahat. Ayoko na makita si mama umiyak eh. Lagi na sa isip ko si mama pagod na. Galing trabaho, walang tulog. Tapos pupunta na kami ng ospital. Pagdating dun, wala nang pahinga.
7 taon na po ako ngayon dinadialysis eh. 30 years old po ako nung nag-umpisang dialysis eh. Wala po akong bisyo, alak, sigarilyo, wala po ako niyan. Ang naging pinaka-addict ko lang po, maghanap buhay araw-araw. Sa hanap buhay ko araw-araw, kaya lang po yung nagawa kong inumin ba pag nabiyahe ng tricycle, yung energy drink, yung po ang sumira sa akin. 2 months lang po niya sinira yung kidney ko. Bumigay na agad.
Stage 5 na ang chronic kidney disease ni Ron Ryan.
Nung in-abdomen ultrasound po ako, nakita po maliliit po yung kidneys ko. Yung isa pong kidney ko parang durog-durog. Yung isa po maliit. Pang 2 years old po yung size niya. Sa nag-research na po ako sa sakit ko. Tas yun po, naano ko na lifetime na po talaga yung dialysis ko po. Pag nakakaramdam po ako ng hirap, sakit po sa dialysis, pag kunyari nakasalang po ako at ako lang po mag-isa, minsan tatalokbong na lang po ako ng kumot pag nakasalang na po ako. Tapos mag-iisip-isip ako. Minsan lagi akong sinasabi, ba't ako pa yung nabigyan ng ganito?
Madam President, the big question now is, why is CKD becoming so prevalent, especially among young people? The steady rise of cases that can be attributed to lifestyle choices. Sa pang-araw-araw na buhay, ang karaniwang Pilipino ay nasanay na sa instant. Dahil ito'y madali, masarap at mura. Ang sinasabi ko po ay mga processed food at packaged drinks. Ang mataas na pagkonsumo ng processed foods, sugary beverages, and salty snacks combined with low physical inactivity have contributed to rising rates of obesity, hypertension, and diabetes, all major risk factors for CKD. Ayon po sa Department of Health at Philippine Renal Disease Registry, ang primary cause ng CKD sa Pilipinas ay 2 po. Una, uncontrolled diabetes. Pangalawa, high blood sugar levels can damage your kidney filters. Over time, your kidneys can become so damaged that they no longer do a good job filtering waste and extra fluid from your blood. Ang hypertension, high blood pressure can damage blood vessels and other parts of the filtering system in the kidneys. If these parts of the kidneys filtering system are damaged, your kidneys may not work as well to remove waste and extra fluid from your body. Extra fluid in your body can raise your blood pressure even more, thus creating a dangerous cycle. The rising cases of CKD in young adults and children is a sign that there is something wrong with our healthcare system. Madam President, the Philippines ranks among the countries with the highest rates of CKD in Southeast Asia, while countries like Singapore and Thailand have also seen increases. The rise in the Philippines is particularly steep. This can be attributed to a combination of limited access to preventive health care, greater exposure to risk factors, and lower awareness among the general public. The primary problem is in the lack of programs for early detection of CKD. Madam President, CKD often shows no symptoms in its early stages. That is why early detection is crucial, because when identified early, CKD can often be managed with medication and lifestyle changes. Simple routine tests sana, such as checking blood pressure, blood sugar, and urine for protein, can catch kidney disease before it progresses. Unfortunately, dito sa Pilipinas, 1 out of 3 CKD patients are already in stages 3 to 5. At sa stage na ito, the cost of managing the disease is 11 times more than managing it in its early stage. From 44,000 pesos to mataas hanggang 116,000 pesos for non-diabetic patients, and from 46,000 pesos to 120,000 pesos for diabetic patients. That is why we must focus on education, regular screening in schools and communities, and promoting healthy habits from a young age. With this, I propose that we explore measures that could address this health concern. Let us provide our people with programs for early detection, essential diagnostics, procedures such as the urine albumin to creatinine ration test remain inaccessible to many patients because they are not covered by PhilHealth, and they cost around 1,500 pesos to 3,500 pesos per test. I filed Senate Bill number 2123, ang Accessible Kidney Care Act, which will provide free kidney health screening in barangay health centers and super health centers to make screening more accessible to the public. Other preventive measure that we could put in place is the improvement in the daily nutrition habit of our people. I filed Senate Bill 1668, or the Health Rating Label Act. The measure will provide a system that measures the overall nutrition profile of packaged food and beverage products from 1 as the least nutritious to 5 as the most nutritious. The rating system is calculated based on a product's calorie, saturated fat, sodium, sugar, and fiber content. Several countries have implemented these measures, and major food and beverage manufacturers have complied. The manufacturers either put the warning label or simply reduce the sugar or sodium content to avoid having the products marked as unhealthy, and as a result, turn off their consumers. Mr. President, the impact of CKD on a young person's life is profound. Physically, CKD leads to fatigue, weakness in advanced stages, the need for regular dialysis, a process that replaces kidney functions but requires several hours, multiple times a week. This can interrupt schooling, work, and social life. Panghabang buhay po ang sakit na CKD, which is why, beyond the physical toll, CKD also brings emotional and social challenges. Families are affected too, facing high medical costs and the emotional weight of supporting a loved one through this chronic disease. As advocates for our people's health, Madam President, let us remember that the fight against CKD is not just the responsibility of doctors and hospitals, it is a challenge for all of us. But the good news is, madami pong solusyon or prevention na mas mura kesa sa pagpapagamot ng CKD. I hope for the support of my dear colleagues, and I know whoever will chair the Committee on Health, may kita nilang halagaan ng mga panukalang ito. Maraming salamat po, Madam President, my dear colleagues. Good evening.
Thank you, Senator Raffy Tulfo, Majority Leader.
Thank
Or
you,
do
Mr.
you
President.
intend to refer the privileged speech of Senator
Thank you, Mr.
Tulfo?
President. Mr. President, I move that we refer the privileged speech of Senator Raffy Tulfo to the Committee on Health and Demography. So moved, Madam President.
So referred.
Madam President, the gentleman from Valenzuela, Senator Win Gatchalian, would like to deliver a privileged speech. I move that he be recognized.
We recognize Senator Sherwin Gatchalian.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Majority Leader. And thank you for giving this representation the opportunity to give this privileged speech. This was supposed to be given last week, but due to some circumstances, this privileged speech has been delayed. So maraming salamat po for the opportunity. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I stand before you today on an issue that should concern every Filipino community, not only because it affects the cleanliness of our surroundings, but also because it directly impacts public health and safety. And allow me to play the video, Mr. President. Madam President. When we ask the technical people to increase the volume. Kitaas po yung volume.
May we see the video, please?
Maybe request to turn up the volume.
We suspend session for 1 minute. ready. Session is resumed.
Again, may I move that we recognize Senator Sherwin Gatchalian.
Thank you, Majority Leader. And there. Allow me to play the video, Madam President.
Please proceed.
Nilaman ng malaking apoy ang isang saradong landfill.
Ang nasa 40 hektare na tambakan na ito ng basura sa Navotas City.
Mahirapan pa rin ang pag-apula rito.
Mabaho, maalikabok at talagang nakususulasok yung amoy. Nagkakasakit na ilang taga-Ubando sa Bulacan.
Dahil sa usok, nag-trigger po yung aking hika.
O sipon, sakit ng ulo at hirap sa paghinga.
On April 10, a massive fire broke out at the Navotas sanitary landfill. In the days that followed, thick, hazardous smoke billowed from the mountain of waste and spread across several parts of Metro Manila. Navotas City, Valenzuela City, Caloocan City, Malabon City, Pasig City, Mandaluyong City, Quezon City, and San Juan City were all shrouded in thick smog. The smoke even stretched as far as Obando, Bulacan. At hindi ito simpleng usok, Madam President. Inuulat ng mga naapektuhang residente na nakaranas sila ng matagal na sakit ng ulo, kahirapan sa paghinga at iba pang sintomas na dala ng maruming hangin. Ang tawag ng Department of Health sa panganib na hangin na ito ay haze. Maruming hangin na naglalaman ng particulate matter na maaring makapasok sa bloodstream o daloy ng ating dugo at magpapalala sa mga sakit o existing conditions. Media reports say that nearly 500 people who live near the landfill were evacuated from their homes to the municipality of Obando, Bulacan. And even then, the haze still reached them. Most tragic of all, 54-year-old Arlene Abbott died due to reported health complications after being evacuated due to the harmful smoke from the landfill. And although the fire has finally been extinguished, the fact that it took one president, this is not only landfill-related tragedy to strike our country in recent memory. Just this January, a garbage landslide struck the Balinaw sanitary landfill in Cebu City. Search and rescue operations ended after 10 days. By then, 36 people had died and 18 others suffered injuries. Madam President, what happened in Navotas and Cebu are not just isolated incidents. They were man-made disasters created by the way we manage, contain, and dispose waste. Most of all, there were warnings that I first sounded 6 years ago. In 2020, I raised an alarm over the country's worsening waste management system. At the time, I warned this chamber that our growing volume of garbage was starting to exceed the absorption capacity of our disposal systems. 6 years to the day, I sound this warning again, because now the consequences of inaction have turned deadly. Innocent lives have been lost. Hundreds have been driven from their homes. And once again, ordinary Filipinos pay the price for our failure to act before the crisis worsened. Let me paint a picture of the situation on the ground. The average amount of waste our country generates each day has been rising steadily, and the figures are alarming. From 51,400 tons per day in 2015 to 61,700 tons per day in 2024. This is a 20% increase in daily waste generation in less than a decade. And now, according to the 2025 data from the National Solid Waste Management Commission, our country generates 22.18 million metric tons of waste annually, more than 48,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools every year. At the current annual growth rate of 2%, the country is projected to produce more than 27 million metric tons of waste per year by 2035. Our daily waste production will increase to more than 74,000 tons per day. These numbers are equivalent to more than 59,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools per year. The law does not leave us without any response. Republic Act 9003, or the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act of 2000, lays down a clear policy framework for solid waste management. It emphasizes the role of local government units to implement proper segregation, recycling, and composting practices, all the way to final disposal. And as I warned way back in 2020, implementation of RA 9003 continues to be weak and found wanting. According to the Commission on Audit's 2023 Performance Audit Report on the implementation of the Solid Waste Management Program, enforcement and compliance have been poor. This is truly unfortunate that the problems we raised 6 years ago have remained largely unaddressed. The first gap is the shortage of materials recovery facilities, or MRF. The COA report also found that of the 42,064 barangays that are supposed to have access to MRFs, only 40% have been served. This means that 6 out of 10 barangays in the country lack MRF access. Section 32 of the Ecological Solid Waste Management Act mandates that every barangay or cluster of barangays will be served by an MRF. This shortcoming is crippling. MRFs are essential to successful solid waste management. The sort, process, and store recyclable materials and bridge the gap between waste collection and final disposal. If the process is compromised early on, the effects ripple across the entire chain. Gap number 2 is the lack of properly maintained and operational sanitary landfills. These are supposed to serve as the end point for residual waste. Information from the COA report shows that as of 2022, only 34.6% of LGUs in the country are being served by a sanitary landfill. Because of this lack of coverage, illegal dump sites continue to be a problem. As of 2024, there are 79 illegal dump sites nationwide. And because these dump sites are illegal, it is very likely the figures are underreported. Now, after all this data, the next question is, what does this all mean? These gaps show us a clear picture. 26 years after the passage of 9003, our country's waste management system is still struggling. The lack of MRFs stalls the proper diversion and processing of recyclable materials, and poor sanitary landfill coverage increase the risk of improper and unsafe disposal system. This makes every improperly managed landfill a breeding ground for disease, a potential fire hazard, and a mountain of environmental pollution. In a 2025 study from the World Health Organization says that uncollected waste management creates favorable conditions for vector-borne and zoonotic diseases. Zoonotic diseases are diseases that can be spread between animals and humans. Now, some might say the solution is simply cracking down on implementation. I argue, Madam President, that even if implementation of 9003 improves, the country still has to grapple with huge amount of residual waste that must be treated or properly disposed of. The country's answer to this problem can't be collection and burial alone. We must expand our toolkit of responses, and one proven modern tool is the waste-to-energy technology. Let me be clear. Waste-to-energy is not a replacement for 9003. The intention is to enhance it. The first line of defense is still reducing waste at the source. We should still address the gaps in landfills and the lack of MRF coverage. But even after all these things are applied, we still have to deal with a large number of residual waste. This waste cannot simply be left to pile up in landfills that are clearly overburdened. Waste-to-energy gives us another option, not just to dispose of this waste safely, but also to convert it into productive resource. In addition to safer treatment, waste-to-energy also allows us to turn material that would otherwise sit in landfills into energy. The Department of Energy estimates that the municipal solid waste generated by Metro Manila and our highly urbanized cities, an estimated of 6.12 million metric tons of municipal solid waste, can generate 335 megawatts of installed capacity. Like the urgent warning I sounded about the need to address our garbage crisis, I've spoken about waste to energy before. This representation was the first to file a dedicated Waste to Energy Act, and I have continued to champion this passage across 3 Congresses. When I was the head of the Committee on Energy 6 years ago, I sponsored Senate Bill number 1789 in the 18th Congress. In the 19th Congress, I co-sponsored Senate Bill Senate Bill 365, or the Waste to Energy Act, as an expansion of our options for dealing with our waste management crisis. This measure seeks to establish a clear national policy and regulatory framework for the adoption and responsible use of waste-to-energy facilities in the Philippines. This integrates waste-to-energy into our existing laws, in particular those on national solid waste management planning. It does not leave health and environmental concerns behind. Senate Bill 365 mandates that the waste-to-energy facilities operate following strict emissions, environmental and public health guidelines. Section 5 of the measure says that a waste-to-energy facility must comply with relevant laws, rules, and regulations such as the Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act of 2004. It also takes the additional step of empowering the Department of Health and the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. They will not only ensure that health and environmental standards are observed, but they will also be instrumental in monitoring the impact of waste-to-energy facilities in our communities by providing reports and research so that the adoption of waste-to-energy is not a loose response, but a careful, monitored component of our larger waste management strategy. I would like to reiterate that waste-to-energy is not some unproven experiment. Advanced economies around the world, such as Singapore and Germany, have successfully integrated this approach into their own solid waste management systems under strict environmental and emission regulations. As of 2023, 47 countries generate electricity from municipal waste and industrial waste. Singapore uses 4 waste-to-energy plants, one of which is located less than 23 kilometers away from Orchard Road. In Berlin, the Ruhleben waste-to-energy facility operates just a short distance from the city center, with emissions remaining well below limits recognized under our own Clean Air Act standards. Let me illustrate. The threshold for dioxins and furans under the Clean Air Act is 0.1 nanogram per normal cubic meter of emitted gas. Actual emissions levels from waste-to-energy plants in Germany, South Korea, and Japan all recorded below this threshold. The emissions from the Ruhleben waste-to-energy facilities are at 0.157 nanogram per cubic meter. South Korea is even lower at 0.02 nanogram per cubic meter, while the emissions of dioxins and furans from Japan's waste-to-energy facility are extremely low. The statistics for dust tell the same story. Allowable limit for dust particulate matter is 10 milligrams per normal cubic meter of emitted gas. The performance of Germany's waste-to-energy plant is at 0.03 milligram per cubic meter. South Korea's WTE plant is at 1.49 milligram per cubic meter, and Japan's WTE plant produces less than 1 milligram per cubic meter. This shows that when waste-to-energy plants are developed and regulated correctly, they can function safely even in highly urbanized communities. Madam President, the Philippines should not be afraid of adopting a modern response simply because we have been accustomed to relying on landfills, open dump sites, and adopting an attitude of out of sight, out of mind. Each day we delay 60,700 tons of garbage strains our waste management system. And with each delay, we move closer to another landfill fire, another forced evacuation, and another Filipino life put at risk. This is unacceptable. Huwag nating hintayin maulit pa ang nangyari sa Navotas at Cebu bago tayo matauhan. Hindi na natin pwedeng ipagpaliban ang isang hakbang na matagal na nating dapat na simulan. Huwag nating hintayin na may mamatay pa muli dahil ang pagpadaig sa pagkawalang bahala at kapabayaan, yan ang tunay na basura. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, dear colleagues.
Thank you very much, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian. That has been a subject matter pending for many years, if not decades. And laws you mentioned, Clean Air Act and RA 9003, were laws I principally authored in my first term. But I believe that there are many of our colleagues who wish to interpolate on this matter, including Senator Pia Cayetano and Senator Risa Ontiveros, who I saw was raising her hand. We will give them a chance to study.
Madam President, I think
Yes.
Senator Risa is raising her hand for a quick manifestation. I move that we can
Thank you.
recognize
We
her.
recognize Senator Ontiveros for her manifestation.
Salamat po, Madam President. Maiklingang manifestation lamang na nakikiisa ako sa sponsor sa usapin ng pagpipigil na may mangyari pang muling waste or open dump site na mga sunog na nakakapatay, nakakasakit sa ating mga kababayan at nakakapatindi ng air pollution sa ating mga syudad at iba pang lugar. Kaisa ako sa good sponsor sa usapin ng buo at maayos na implementasyon ng Solid Waste Management Act. Pero at siguro hindi ito surprise sa good sponsor, hindi pa rin po ako kumbinsido sa waste to energy bilang isang alternatibo sa dulo ng ganyang buong prosesyong iyon at aktibo muli akong lalahok sa pagdinig sa komite at sa debate dito sa plenaryo. Gagawin ko po yun, Madam President, good sponsor, kaugnay nung mga hanggang ngayon ongoing na mga mayamang diskusyon ko at ng aking Legis team sa Eco Waste Coalition at sa mga 100 higit na mga European Union organizations na nananawagan para sa moratorium sa waste to energy at nananawagan din para sa planned phase out ng mga waste to energy facility. So, ipapasok ko po sa pagdinig at saka sa debate dito sa plenaryo yung mga alternatibong sinusulong nitong mga ecological partners ng Senado dito sa usapin ng waste to energy. So, salamat po, maraming salamat, Madam President at good sponsor.
Thank you, Senator Risa. Madam President, I move that we suspend consideration of the privileged speech of Senator Win Gatchalian since some of our colleagues have reserved the right to interpolate on Monday.
Yes.
I so move,
No
Madam
objection?
President.
Hearing none. The speech, consideration of the speech is hereby suspended pending the interpellation by Monday next week.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you.
On some administrative matters, the minority leader, the former Senate President, is raising his hand. I move that we recognize the minority leader.
We recognize former Senate President,
Thank you,
Minority Leader.
Madam Presiding Officer, Mr. President. May I know from it's a parliamentary inquiry, may I know from the Secretariat if we are in receipt already of the articles of impeachment from the House of Representatives? I have it from a reliable source from the House that they have sent it. So I don't know if you have received it already.
Yes, I am told by the Secretary General that none has been received thus far.
You have not received it yet. It's 5:47.
None received. As of 5:48,
As of 5:48, you
PM.
have not received it. All right. Thank you.
and it is,
We'll await.
and may I say this as well, to put on record, it is a belief of this representation that there must be a fair and independent court and that action must be taken forthwith.
Correct, Madam President, because I distinctly remember the last time it was submitted here, it was received at 4:15 p.m., but you adjourned at 7 without the body knowing about it. So I just want to make sure
Yes.
that before we adjourn, we are in receipt. If we do have received it, and if really the House of Representatives has already sent it, the message was for around 4:25 this afternoon.
I repeat, the message I'm receiving from the Secretary General is that
Not
it has
yet.
not been received. And
Thank you.
just a minor correction from the former Senate President when you say you adjourned, because in generations to come, they will not say or read who is you. I was not the presiding officer, Mr. Minority Leader, at the time. So in reference to me, when you say it is you, just to put on record, it was not this presiding officer, Senator Legarda, who was the Senate President or the presiding officer at that time, just for correction, because it will just be a black and white indication on the archives of the Senate. Thank you.
At this juncture, Madam President, just some administrative matters. Madam President, I move that we proceed to the Senate President's designation of Senate conferees to the Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions on Senate Bill number 1894 and House Bill number 8476, the bills amending the Universal Access to Quality Tertiary Education Act. So move, Madam President.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the following members are hereby designated as Senate conferees to the Conference Committee on the disagreeing provisions on Senate Bill 1894, House Bill 8476. This is my bill, therefore I'm the chairperson. The members are Senator Joel Villanueva, Senator Pia Cayetano, Senator Mark Villar, and on the part of the minority, Senator Bam Aquino. So designated.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, may I seek for a minute suspension?
Senate suspended. Session is resumed.
Madam President, I move that we recognize the minority leader.
We recognize Senator Vicente Soto.
Right. Madam President, we have a slight correction. The information was at 4:25 they were going to send the articles of impeachment. So we have what do you call this, a reference of business. So we might as well do the reference of business, and if by the time we finish, then you are ready to adjourn and we have not received it yet, then it's no longer our fault.
Yes, Mr. President. Yes. Mr. Former Senate President, yes. Majority Leader,
Madam President, may we proceed with the reference of business?
please proceed.
Reference of business. Message to the President of the Philippines. Letter of His Excellency President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., dated 29 April 2026, proposing increasing the minimum access volume by 150,000 metric tons annually for a period of 2 years, commencing in MAV year 2026, such that the MAV for pork for MAV year 2026 shall be set at 204,210 metric tons from current level of 54,210 metric tons, pursuant to Public Act number 8178. The proposed adjustment seeks to address persistent domestic supply constraints arising from the prolonged impact of the African swine fever.
Referred to the Committee on Agriculture, Food, and Agrarian Reform.
Messages from the House of Representatives. Letter from the House of Representatives informing that the Senate on 6 May 2026 designated Representatives Romulo, Asidre, Gatchalian, Escudero, and Jokno as conferees to the Bicameral Conference Committee on the Operations House Bill number 4744 titled An Act Establishing the Private Basic Education Voucher Program, providing for the creation of the Bureau of Private Education, reporting function for repealing for the purpose sections 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 12, 14, and 15 of Public Number 8545, otherwise known as the Expanded Government Assistance to Students and Teachers in Private Education Act, which amended Republic Act Number 6728, otherwise known as the Government Assistance to Students and Teachers in Private Education Act, and Senate Bill Number 1981, titled An Act Establishing the Private Basic Education Voucher Program and appropriating funds for repealing for the purpose Republic Act Number 6728, or the Government Assistance to Students and Teachers in Private Education as amended.
Referred to the Committee on Rules.
Later, from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that 6 May 2026, it ratified the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions, House Bill Number 5939, titled An Act Allowing the Department of Education the flexibility to determine the pedagogical approaches to be implemented in the basic education curriculum, amending for the purpose Section 5 of Act Number 10533, or the Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013, and Senate Bill Number 1899, titled An Act Allowing the Department of Education the flexibility to determine the pedagogical approaches to be implemented in the basic education curriculum, amending for the purpose Section 5 of Republic Act Number 10533, or the Enhanced Basic Education Act of 2013.
To the archives.
Letter from the House of Representatives informing the Senate that on 6 May 2026, it ratified the Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provision, House Bill Number 4745, titled An Act Institutionalizing the Public Basic Education Schools in Geographically Isolated, in Disadvantaged and Conflict-Affected Areas, providing access roads leading to last-mile schools, and putting funds therefore, and Senate Bill Number 1937, titled An Act Institutionalizing Support for Public Basic Education Schools in Geographically Isolated and Disadvantaged Areas, and appropriating funds therefore.
To the archives.
Bills on first reading. Senate Bill Number 2122, An Act remaining the Tawi-Tawi Regional Agricultural College as a Tawi-Tawi State College, strengthening its governing board, and appropriating funds therefore, by Senator Legarda.
Referred to the Committee on Higher Education, Technical and Vocational Education, and Finance.
2123, An Act mandating the establishment of dialysis centers, expanding access to kidney disease detection and dialysis treatment services, and appropriating funds therefore, by Senator Tulfo.
Referred to the Committees on Health and Demography, Social Justice, Welfare, and Rural Development, and Finance.
2124, An Act excluding system loss from value-added taxes in the sale of electricity to residential household consumers, by Senator Pangilinan.
Referred to the Committees on Ways and Means and Energy.
2125, An Act strengthening the Philippine Normal University, declaring it as a national university for teacher education, and appropriating funds therefore, by Senator Gatchalian.
Referred to the Committees on Higher Technical and Vocational Education, Ways and Means, and Finance.
Resolution number 385, resolution honoring the life and legacy of Martin Alondris Tuason, for his invaluable contributions, steadfast commitment, and unwavering dedication to strengthening the Philippine defense industry, by Senator Subiri.
Referred to the Committee on Rules.
Communication. Letter from Acting Executive Secretary Ralph G. Recto dated 13 April 2026, transmitting to the Senate a certified true copy of the Petroleum Service Contract Number 91 between the Republic of the Philippines and the Consortium NPG, Party Limited, Philodril Corporation, Rental Petroleum and Minerals Corporation, Forum Energy Philippines Corporation, and Alcorn Petroleum and Minerals Corporation, pursuant to Section 2, Article 12 of the Constitution.
Referred to the Committee on Energy.
Committee reports. Committee report number 61, submitted by the Committee on Justice and Human Rights on House Bill number 6639, introduced by Representative D. FC et al., titled An Act Granting Philippine Citizenship to Benny Francois Boatwright III. Requesting approval without amendment taken into consideration, Senate Bill number 1595 by Senator Pangilinan.
Calendar for Ordinary Business.
Committee report number 62, submitted by the Committee on Justice and Human Rights on House Bill number 6644, introduced by Representative D. et al., titled An Act Granting Philippine Citizenship to Matthew James Ramos, recommending its approval without amendment taken into consideration, Senate Bill number 1613 by Senator Pangilinan.
To the calendar, ordinary business.
Madam President, at this point, I move that we adjourn the session until 3 o'clock in the afternoon of Monday, May 18, 2006.
Session is adjourned at 5:58 p.m. and we resume on Monday
At 3 o'clock.
3 p.m., May 18, 2026.